The 1950s mother had one rule. When she spoke, you listened the first time. I learned it in my mama's kitchen in 1953, standing on a stool with a dish towel pinned to me. Number 10 on this list is the chore my mama gave me at 6, and it would horrify a modern playdate. Number 7 still makes my grown daughter wince. Number 4 on this list is the bedtime rule that ended every tantrum. Modern parents call these tactics cruel, but the children grew up steady, so hit subscribe and pull up a chair, because here are 14 unspoken 1950s mom tactics that modern parents call cruel, and that worked. Number 14. Wait your turn to speak. The first thing my mama taught me was that grown-up talk was not my talk. When my aunts came over for coffee on a Saturday morning, I was allowed in the kitchen, but I was not allowed in the conversation. I could sit on the stool, I could shell peas, I could listen, but I could not interrupt. If I had something to say, I waited. If the wait was long, I learned to hold the thought in my head until the women paused. Modern parents call this silencing a child. In 1953, my mama called it manners. The thing is, I learned to listen better than I ever learned to talk. I learned that adults had whole worlds in their sentences, and I learned that my little opinion about the cookies was not the center of anybody's afternoon. When my own kids were small, I let them interrupt me for years before I remembered what my mama did, and the day I asked them to wait, the house got quieter and a little easier to breathe in. Number 13. The clean plate rule. There was no leaving the table in my mama's house until the plate looked like it had been licked. She had grown up in the tail end of the Depression, and food on a plate was not a suggestion. It was a small fortune. If I pushed my green beans to the rim, she pushed them back to the middle, and if I sat there for an hour staring at cold beans, then I sat there for an hour. The whole country was doing this. Parents who had lived through ration books and victory gardens in the 40s could not stomach the sight of a half-eaten pork chop in the trash. By the late 50s, the Clean Plate Club was practically a household religion, with the famous Starving Children Overseas guilt trip rolled out at every supper. Modern parents call it disordered, and I have read the articles, and I understand the worry. But in my mama's kitchen, the rule was not about restriction, it was about respect. Respect for the farmer, respect for the dollar she stretched, respect for the woman who stood at that stove for an hour. I learned to take only what I could finish. That single habit has saved me more money over 50 years than any coupon I ever clipped. Number 12. Go find something to do. The word bored did not exist in my mama's vocabulary, and if it slipped out of mine, she had a cure for it. She handed me the dust rag. After the second time I learned not to say it out loud, I learned to find something to do on my own. Kids in our neighborhood were pushed out the door after breakfast and not expected back until the streetlights came on, unless we were bleeding or unless somebody was on fire. We made a whole afternoon out of a stick, a chalk line, and 3 friends. We dug in dirt. We rode bikes to the corner. We invented games with names nobody else knew. Children's television was barely a thing in 1953, and a TV set in the living room was still the exception, not the rule. So we learned to entertain ourselves, and the part nobody talks about is that we learned to like our own company. Modern parents call it neglect to send a 7-year-old out the door without a schedule. My mama called it Tuesday. When my own grandbabies come over now, I still set them in the yard with nothing but a bucket and a stick, and I watch them figure it out. They always do. The boredom does not last. It never did. Number 11. The first time listen. My mama said a thing one time. If she had to say it twice, somebody was getting a wooden spoon waved at them, and if she had to say it 3 times, the spoon was no longer being waved. Coats off, hands washed, table set. 1 ask. She did not bargain. She did not count to 3. She did not crouch to my level and explain the why behind the request. The why was that she had said it. Children in the 50s were expected to follow instructions instantly, and talking back was considered one of the worst offenses a child could commit. Parents rarely explained their decisions because the explanation, in their minds, was the relationship itself. You listened because she was your mother. Modern parents call this authoritarian, and I do not argue. It was, but here is what nobody tells you. When the adult in the room only has to ask 1 time, the day moves faster, the home is calmer, and the child learns that words have weight. I spent the first 10 years with my own children counting to 3 like every other young mother in the 80s. And I want to tell you honestly, by the time I got to 3, I was already losing. My mama never lost because she never started counting. The 1 ask rule was not cruelty, it was clarity, and children, more than anything, hunger for clarity. Tell me something in the comments. What is the one thing your mother did that you swore you would never do until you became a parent yourself? I read every single one, and I promise you, you are not the only one who hears your mama coming out of your own mouth. Number 10, 6-year-olds did real chores. I told you up at the top of this list that my mama gave me a chore at 6 that would horrify a modern playdate, and here it is. I was in charge of the breakfast dishes. Not rinsing, not helping. The full sink, hot water, a bar of soap on a saucer, a thin towel pinned to my chest because I could not reach the counter without standing on the kitchen stool. I broke a juice glass the first week, and my mama swept it up and handed me the broom for the next mess. That was the lesson. In the 1950s, a child without regular chores was looked at funny by the neighbors and called spoiled by the other kids. The rule of thumb in those Better Homes parenting columns was that if a 6-year-old could not learn to clean the kitchen, she had no business learning to bake cookies in it. Modern parents call it unsafe. They call it too much. They send their 10-year-olds to occupational therapy to learn to butter toast. But the truth is, a 6-year-old with real responsibility stands an inch taller by supper time. I knew at 6 that the family ran a little better because of me, and that knowing is something no sticker chart has ever managed to teach a child since. Number 9, no negotiating at the dinner table. There was one supper in my mama's kitchen, and it was the supper she made. She did not run a short-order diner. She did not ask what I felt like eating. She did not make a separate plate of buttered noodles because the meatloaf had onions. If I did not care for the cabbage, I ate around it, and I did not announce my opinion about it to the table. Children in the 50s were expected to eat what was served, say thank you for the meal, and ask permission before leaving the table. Picky eating was treated as a passing inconvenience, not a personality. The pediatricians of the day, even the gentler ones like Dr. Spock writing in 1946 and again in the 1957 edition of his book, told mothers not to make food a battleground, which most mothers took to mean do not negotiate. Cook one supper, serve it, move on. Modern parents call it controlling, and I will admit I made 3 meals a night for years before I caught myself. But I will tell you this. The week I stopped running a kitchen democracy, my kids tried things they had refused for a decade. The fight was never about the food. The fight was about who held the spoon, and once I quietly took it back, the table got peaceful again. Number 8, the look that ended a tantrum. My mama did not yell in a grocery store. She did not crouch. She did not negotiate in the cereal aisle. She had a look, and the look did all of her parenting for her in public. It was not mean, it was not even angry. It was a level, unblinking, quiet sort of attention that landed on you from across a room and pinned you to the linoleum where you stood. I felt it for the first time in a Piggly Wiggly in 1955. I was 4, and I had wanted a box of Sugar Smacks, and I had started winding up for the kind of full-body tantrum a 4-year-old commits to. My mama did not say a word. She set her purse on the cart handle. She turned her body. She found my eyes, and she just looked. The store kept moving. The butcher called a number, and I, in the middle of all that noise, slowly let the air out of my chest and put my hand back on the cart. There was no scene. There was no spanking. There was a look, and the look was enough. The 1950s mother had this in her toolkit because she had been raised with it herself. It was passed down the way a recipe gets passed down, only quieter, with no card and no measurements. Modern parents call it cold. They say a child needs words and a calm narration of the feelings she is having in front of the cereal, and maybe sometimes she does. But there are moments in a mother's life when a calm, certain, wordless look does more than any sentence she could string together, because the look says, "I see you. I am not afraid of this feeling, and I am still your mother." My own daughter swears she does not use the look. Then I watched her use it on her toddler at Thanksgiving, and I did not say a word. I just smiled into my coffee. Some tools do not get forgotten. They just wait one generation, and then they come back. Number 7, Saturday morning chores before cartoons. Saturday in my mama's house started with a broom in my hand and a wet rag on the radio. The cartoons were on, the Howdy Doody Hour was running in living rooms all over town, and other kids were in their pajamas with a bowl of Cheerios on the rug. Not in our house. The beds were stripped before the cartoons could finish, the rugs were beaten on the back porch line, and the bathroom mirror got wiped down with vinegar before anybody touched a cereal box. My mama did not consider Saturday a day off. She considered it the day everything that slipped during the week got caught up, and a child in the house was a worker in the house. Modern parents call this stealing a child's weekend. They say Saturday is for play, for rest, for unstructured time. I have read the gentle parenting books. I understand the argument. But there is a particular pride that lives in a 7-year-old who has wiped down a bathroom mirror with her own 2 hands and can see her face in it. My grown daughter still cleans her kitchen on Saturday morning before she opens her laptop. She tells me she hates it, and she does it anyway, and the house runs because of it. Some habits skip a generation, some go straight through. Number 6, because I said so. There was no court of appeals in my mama's kitchen. When I asked why, the answer was 4 words, and she did not even look up from the pot of beans to deliver them. Because I said so. That was the whole sentence. There was no follow-up paragraph, no patient breakdown of the reasoning, no kneeling down to my level so I could understand the nuance of bedtime. The because was her. Parents in the 1950s did not feel they owed a child the architecture of their decisions, and the parenting columns of the day, including the ones running in Better Homes and Gardens and McCall's, treated over-explaining as a kind of weakness. The thinking went that if you justified every rule, you taught the child that rules were up for debate. Modern parents call this lazy. They say a child deserves a reason, that obedience without understanding is fragile. And maybe that is true for grown choices. But for a 5-year-old who wants to know why she has to wash her hands before supper, the answer was not a chemistry lesson. The answer was the mother in front of her. I will tell you what my mama's 4 words taught me. They taught me that some authority does not need to be earned in the moment. Some authority is simply the relationship. If anything I've said reminded you of your own mother, give this video a like so it finds the other women who need to hear it. There are a lot of us out here, and we are not as alone as the parenting books make us feel. Number 5. Sunday Best. There was a dress in my closet that did not come out for school, did not come out for the playground, and did not come out for visits to my grandmother on a Tuesday. It came out on Sunday. The dress was navy with a white collar, and there were shoes that lived in tissue paper at the bottom of the closet, and there were white anklets that my mama washed by hand on Saturday night and laid flat on a towel to dry. Sunday was different, and the way we dressed announced it. The whole country was doing this. By the mid-50s, a Sears Roebuck Sunday catalog could sell a girl's church dress for under $5, and most families had a separate set of clothes that signaled the day. The dressing was not vanity. It was respect for the hour, for the building, for the people who would see you there. Modern parents call this performative. They say a child should be comfortable in her own skin, in her own clothes, on her own terms. I understand the argument, and I would never put a stiff collar on a Saturday. But there was something a child learned from a Sunday dress that she could not learn from a t-shirt. She learned that some hours of the week deserve to be honored with the body, not just with the mind. I still put on a little lipstick before church. My mama is still in that mirror with me every Sunday, fixing my collar. Number 4, bedtime was not a negotiation. I told you up at the top of this list that there was a bedtime rule in my mama's house that ended every tantrum, and here it is. Bedtime was a time. It was not a conversation. It was not a song and dance with 3 books and a glass of water and a last hug and a second last hug. The clock said 7:30, and my feet were on the cold floor of the bedroom by 7:29. There was a kiss, there was the lamp clicking off, and there was the door closing, and that was the whole evening ritual. If I cried, the door stayed closed. If I called out for water, my mama had already left a small glass on the dresser at 7, and she was not coming back to refill it. The 1950s mother treated bedtime as a non-negotiable household event, the same way she treated supper. The pediatricians of the era, even Dr. Spock in his 1946 baby book, were unanimous that a consistent bedtime did more for a child's nervous system than any amount of stalling and bargaining. Modern parents call this cold. They call it abandonment. They worry about attachment and emotional safety. I want to tell you gently that I never once doubted my mama loved me because she closed the door at 7:30. I doubted it on plenty of other days for plenty of other reasons, but the closed bedroom door was not one of them. The closed door was the rule, and the rule was the comfort. I slept like a stone for the first 10 years of my life because nobody ever taught me that bedtime was something I could win. Number 3, handwritten thank you notes. The day after Christmas in my mama's house was not for playing with toys. It was for writing thank you notes. She sat me down at the kitchen table with a stack of small cards, a pen that was too big for my hand, and a list in her handwriting of every aunt, every uncle, every neighbor, and every Sunday school teacher who had given me anything that year. I wrote each one out. I named the gift. I said why I liked it. I signed my name in the careful cursive my second-grade teacher had drilled into me. My mama checked every note before it went in the envelope, and if the handwriting was sloppy or the sentence was thin, I wrote it again. By the mid-50s, the thank you note was a quiet expectation of any well-raised child, and the Emily Post etiquette guides running through their many editions devoted whole chapters to it. Modern parents call this exhausting. They say a text message will do, or a quick phone call on speaker. I understand the pace of the world has changed, but a handwritten note teaches a child something a text never will. It teaches her that gratitude takes time, that the person who gave the gift deserves the inconvenience of the pen, and that her name in her own hand, on her own card, is a small thing she gives back. I still write notes. My aunts are gone, but my hand still knows the way. Number 2, no praise for basic behavior. My mama did not clap when I cleared the table. She did not say good job when I tied my shoes. She did not put a sticker on a chart when I brushed my teeth without being asked. The doing of the thing was the reward. The reward was that the house ran, that supper happened, that the kitchen got clean, and that I had been a useful part of it. Parents in the 1950s reserved their praise for the genuinely difficult and the genuinely brave. The report card that came home with 3 A's on it, the recital piece that did not fall apart in the middle. The everyday duties of being a child were considered baseline, not bonus. Modern parents call this withholding. They say a child needs constant affirmation, that praise builds self-esteem, that every small effort deserves a notice. I have watched my grandbabies be told they are amazing for finishing a slice of toast, and I want to tell you, the praise loses its meaning when it covers everything. When my mama said good job, she meant it, and I felt it in my chest for a week. The rare word is the word that lands. The everyday silence around ordinary effort is not coldness. It is respect for the child's growing competence. She does not need a cheering section. She needs a quiet mother who notices when it matters. Number 1, earn your treat. The last tactic is the one that ran our whole kitchen on a Friday afternoon. Treats were not given. They were earned. The slice of cake after supper, the nickel for the corner store, the box of Cracker Jack on a road trip, these came after the chores were done, the manners were used, and the week had been honest. My mama did not bribe me to behave. She did not promise me a sucker if I sat still in the doctor's office. The sucker came sometimes on the way home because the sitting still had already happened. Modern parents call this transactional. I call it the way the world works for the rest of a person's life. Nobody hands you the dessert at the start of the meal. You eat the supper first. That was the lesson, and it was the gift, and it stayed with me for 60 years. Start with one tactic this week. Not all 14, not a whole new household by Monday morning, just one. Pick the rule that made you pause, the one that sounded a little like your own mama in the back of your head, and put it into the kitchen on Tuesday and see what happens. The children will test it, and the house will adjust, and a small piece of something steady will come back into your evenings. What is the one your mama did that you have been afraid to bring back? Tell me in the comments. I want to know which 1950s rule has been waiting patiently in your kitchen for you to pick it up again. Mama Hazel, signing off.